Hey guys, so welcome to a new video. Let me apologize for the long break in transmission. I was just trying to set up my new studio here in the US, and I'll do a separate video where I'll share with you what my studio looks like right now. But I also want to apologize for the clickbaity title of this video, but I really have to share this with you because I feel like a lot of people don't realize that the biggest secret in mixing and mastering is the use of saturation and using saturation to improve perceived loudness. There's a difference between, so you could have two tracks and those two tracks would have exactly the same peaks. So they'll be hitting, say, 3 dB, and they might even have exactly the same lofts or even the same RMS. But one of them is going to sound louder because loudness comes from different parameters. So it could be from the arrangement. So when you create contrast, so quiet areas, loud areas, you create loudness. But it could also be because of the perceptual loudness. So you have two kicks and the two kicks are hidden together, but one of them is louder than the other one simply because of the perceived loudness. And you can achieve that by introducing harmonics. And so when you saturate, when you use saturation or distortion, what you're doing is you're introducing either second order or third order harmonics. And this actually creates the perception of that sound being louder without necessarily, pushing up your peaks and creating, a lot of noise or a distorted mix. So let me quickly show you what I have here. I have a song. This is from an artist called Kumsil, and she's featuring a guy called Super D. They're both from Sierra Leone, from Freetown actually. And I recorded them when I was based in Freetown. And I'll play a small section and I want you to listen. This is how the original mix sounds before I put some stuff on the mix box, which I'm going to show you shortly.
For the reason where you bam me, not the reason make a bam by you. For the reason where you turn for me, not the reason make a stand by you.
Baby, me had a quest for your body, oh. For your body, you get good loving, and you are one in a million, oh. The way you give them mente me, I dey feel like a real man. You sabi cook, you sabi book, you sabi old man, and you love just to blow me mind. Baby, nya longa be, oh. Baby, nya longa be, oh. You dey give me this, you give me that, and all at one time.
All right, so it's an okay mix. It's not really bad. I've put in all the effects and everything, but before I send this mix for mastering, I want to make sure that I work on the mix bus and I achieve a little bit more perceived loudness while I try to control the peaks. And so what have I done? Firstly, I have a compressor. It's called the Glue. You could also use, it's an SSL style compressor, so you could use any of those ones from Waves, from UAD. Any of them would do the job. I'm taking off a little bit of the peaks and
for the reason where you bam me, not the reason make a bam by you. For the reason,
so I'm just taking something like 2-3 dBs of reduction because I really wanted this song. I felt like this song was a little too dynamic and I wanted to really kind of just control it, and that's why I'm doing that. Some songs I do just like 1 dB of compression. I'm using a long attack time, but not the longest, and a short release, but also not the shortest. So for every song, you have to find what works. I'm using a low ratio of 2. And yeah, I'm also throwing in an internal side chain with a high pass filter at 112 hertz because I don't want the kick and the bass to be compressed that much. And so I make sure I sidechain them and kind of, let's say, dodge or avoid them as they go into the compressor. So the other thing I have done here is to add saturation, which of course, that's the biggest secret. That's the whole point. And for this saturation, there's a preset called, for FabFilter Saturn 2, there's a preset called Saturate and Color. and it's a starting point, and then from there you start to tweak. You take that preset and you kind of work on the drive, check it, make sure it's okay. And then I also went here and did some adjustments to the amount of saturation that it's doing, just based off of what you're hearing. But the most important thing is this saturation gives the mix a little more life. So if I turn it off, this is how it sounds.
For the reason where you bam me, not the reason make a bam by you.
And if I turn it on,
For the reason where you bam me, not the reason make a bam by you.
So if you're listening to this on headphones, good headphones, or you're listening to it on monitor speakers, you can hear that there's an absolute difference. Like the mix just comes alive.
For the reason where you bam me, not the reason make a bam by you. For the reason where you turn for me, not the reason make a stand by you.
Baby, me had a quest for your body, oh. You get good loving, and you are one in a million, oh. The way you give them me, I dey feel like.
So you can see it brings out the highs, makes them a little smoother, louder, and also brings out the lows, and the kick and the bass are just that little bit more punchy. So saturation is key. So this is the first part of this video. I'm going to do a second part of the video where I'll take you into a full mix and I'll show you how I saturate, because in this mix I've saturated the vocals, the kick, the bass, the snare, like almost everything on this mix has some degree of saturation. But I'm just showing you how I saturate the mix bus and just illustrating the whole point of how saturation is the biggest secret. If you can get saturation down, you can really make very loud, lively, exciting mixes. And so the last thing I'm doing here is putting a clipper. I'm just using the Diablo lights from Cymatics, but you can use any clipper for this. And what I'm doing here is I'm turning up the punch a little bit, and I'm also clipping, because why am I clipping? Because I don't want the peaks of the audio to become more, right? So you can catch the peaks with two things. You can either use saturation or you can use clipping, but I'm combining them, and I'll explain the final outcome in a minute. But just listen to the difference without it.
For the reason where you bam me, not the reason make a bam by you. For the reason where you turn for me, not the reason make a stand by you.
Baby.
So, the kick is punchier, but the most important reason that I'm using this guy, I want to show you down here. Now, if I turn off, just watch where this thing is picking without these three plugins. Let me just turn it off.
For the reason where you bam me, not the reason make a bam by you. For the reason where you turn for me, not the reason make a stand by you.
Baby, me had a quest for your body, oh. You get good loving, and you are one in.
So we're getting something like minus 5.1 as the peak. This is without the mix bus processing. So now let's do the mix bus processing, and let's see. You're going to notice that it's going to sound louder, but the peaks are not going to change. It's going to keep it roughly at the same level.
For the reason where you bam me, not the reason make a bam by you. For the reason where you turn for me, not the reason make a stand by you.
So you notice that we actually saved 1 dB. So before it was -5, but now we have -6, and that's a huge saving. So just tell me in the comment box, what is better than having a louder, more exciting mix, but having it at a much lower dB? What that means is when you go for mastering, it's going to be really easy, because you're going to get a much louder, more punchy mix just from the fact that you've been able to, save all this headroom. So it's all about saving headroom, and that's why we saturate. You improve perceptual loudness while you save headroom. So the last thing I want to show you is the two copies. One has no mix bus processing, one has mix bus processing. I'm going to turn off everything here. Yeah. And so we can now listen, like if I play. So let's just look at the waves, for instance. If you look at the lower one, without mixed bus processing, you can see that there's a lot of dynamism. There's a huge difference between the peaks. You can see this peak is really big, but this one is really low. But when you compare this, it looks a little thicker and everything is at the same level, right? Of course, there'll be sections of the mix where you want to keep things quiet so that you can establish that contrast. But I'm just saying when everything is playing in the mix, you want you want everything to be kind of a little bit close and not too much dynamism, so that you don't have something triggering your limiter and causing distortion when you still have something else which is really quiet and people can hear it. So that's the whole point. It's about saving headroom. It's about achieving a perceptually louder mix. And so if we listen to the one without the processing, so it's gonna be, sorry, 1 second. Yeah.
I dey feel like a real man. You sabi cook, you sabi book, you sabi old man, and you love just to blow me mind. Baby, nyalonga be, oh.
All right, let's play the same thing, but this time with mixed bus processing.
I dey feel like a real man. You sabi cook, you sabi book, you sabi old man, and you love just to blow me mind. Baby, nyalonga be, oh.
So you see, it's a more exciting, louder mix. And I'll go back again, and I want you to this time to pay attention to the decibels, right? Check this meter here. We could also bring in another meter. Maybe that would be better. I'll just bring in, say, something like metering from T-Rex. Okay. Now this is with no mixed bus processing. Just watch what the values are here.
I dey feel like a real man. You sabi cook, you sabi book, you sabi old man, and you love just to blow me mind. Baby, nyalonga be, oh. Baby, nyalonga.
So the lofts is around -19. The peak is around -5.1, right? So I'm gonna now switch to the one which is perceptually louder, has been saturated, but actually would have less readings.
I dey feel like a real man. You sabi cook, you sabi book, you sabi old man, and you love just to blow me mind. Baby, nyalonga be, oh.
So you see, it's louder. It has -18, -17.9, but the peak was just like -5.9. So guys, I really, really don't know how else to tell you this, but if you're not using saturation, if you're not controlling your peaks, it's going to be difficult for you. Usually the best way to do it is to start from the source and make sure the sounds that you select are already perceptually louder and heavier, if that's what you're going for. But however, if you're already mixing, let's say somebody sends you a mix and you're already mixing, then saturation is the key. So I'm going to make a second video where I'll go into more detail into how to saturate all your individual elements and, finally get that feel. But, that's just it. You're looking for the biggest secret that's going to improve your mixing, give you loud but clean mixes. Then you definitely need to learn how to start using saturation. And for saturation, there are so many things you can use. Saturn 2 is just one example, but I have a lot of saturation, distortion that I use. Sometimes I use the SDRR2 from Klanghelm. The T-Rex also has a great saturator and also a clipper as well. So, Waves has a lot of them, Abbey Road saturator. Just keep experimenting. But the aim, like I said, is to ensure that you're saving headroom. You're getting less decibels, but you're getting a much more punchy, louder, cleaner, exciting sound. So guys, as usual, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Hit me up, like, comment, share. Please, 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 when you like, you subscribe. My videos get featured more and more people join the family. I really, really appreciate the followership. Right now, we're above 8,000. Get me to 10,000, guys. I know you can do this. Thank you so much, and see you next time.